So Red challenged me today to tell the story of Twilight, but make it good. And to do so, I would have to take elements from Harry Potter, either characters, story arcs, ideas, whatever, and see what I can do. I was a little bit worried at first, but then I thought, you know, I think it would be almost impossible to make it any worse. So here we go, bear with me, tell me what you think. This is my pitch to you. So once upon a time, there lived a boy named Charlie, and Charlie had a secret. You see, Charlie is in fact a wizard, and every year he goes away to school in England, or as his parents just say, he goes abroad. Every time Charlie comes home, he's worried that everyone he knows is going to hate him if they find out he's a wizard. You know, those witch burning trials only happened like a few hundred years ago. So when he graduates, he decides that, okay, I'll give it up. I can live without magic. I'm gonna be a muggle. And things are looking up. He becomes a police officer, he marries the girl of his dreams, they have a daughter, until one day he just can't bear it anymore. And he thinks, well, you know, we've been together for so long, I should tell her. So Charlie's worst fears come true. Renee takes the baby and books it, because he's probably a crazy person. But then Bella becomes a teenager. Most wizards start showing signs of their wizardry around the age of, say, 10, 11. But Bella, she's a bit of a late bloomer and starts showing signs around the age of 15, 16. Renee, kind of freaked out, writes it off, and then she gets the first letter from Hogwarts and is just like, yeah, no. When she can't take it anymore and Bella's klutzy wizardriness finally hits the level that's just beyond her, she thinks, you know what? I'll send you off to your father because he probably knows how to deal with this. So Charlie is overjoyed that his daughter's going to be joining him, but at the same time he's a little bit wary because there's a few things happening in the wizarding world that he doesn't really want Bella to get involved in. You know, there's this guy, what's his name? Big, you know, bald, no nose, Voldemort. Voldemort is running around. But the thing is, you know how there are chosen ones and there are this prophecy? Well, there's Harry Potter. Charlie's money is on Harry Potter, but he's a little bit nervous. There's Neville Longbottom, who, in Charlie's opinion, is a write-off. He has buddies in Hogwarts. Just leave it at that. And then there is the aptly named Bella Swan. So when Bella finally comes to Forks, Charlie is all like, I'm gonna train you, and this is gonna be okay, because you know what? If you're the chosen one, you can do this. But because Bella is a little bit behind on her studies, Hogwarts sends her correspondence courses, so Bella still has to go to the regular normal kid high school, and that's where she meets Edward Cullen. Now you're probably asking why Charlie didn't just leave the Muggle Society after his wife left him and go and join the wizarding world, because, you know, the only reason he was sticking around was for his wife. But the answer is simple. You see, Charlie's a police officer by day, and by night he makes sure that the magical creatures and people in the area aren't breaking any rules. Unbeknownst to Charlie, the nice doctor friend that he's befriended he's a vampire. That whole sparkling thing. See this, I'm having a bit of a difficulty with this in my little nice, pretty packaged up narrative, because if I get rid of it then they can't go to school, but let's say that he's always sunburnt. All the vampires, they can go out in the sun, but they're always kind of toasty. So Bella starts going to school, and even though she's training to be the best witch ever, she's having a bit of a hard time keeping her powers in control. And so her only thing that she can do is when she accidentally does something stupid with magic, she's like, oh, I'm a klutz. I didn't mean to do that. I mean, how did I? That wasn't me, you know, I can't carry things. I'm just so awkward. Yeah, I'm awkward. I'll just, you know, hide my wand in my pocket. And so Bella is really interested in this guy named Edward, and he's kind of pretty, but at the same time, as we decided, he looks like he's just come out of a tanning bed for too long, and he's always kind of pinkish, but, you know, she kind of likes it. And so while they're having dinner, Bella notices that Edward doesn't touch any of the appetizers they've ordered. Instead, he's staring at her glass of tomato juice with this really weird look on his face, like he's trying to hold himself back from something. This is all very interesting to Bella, seeing as her mind has just been opened to the supernatural magical world. So she goes home, and the next day her dad calls her down and is like, hey Bella, we have people over. And Bella's just like, okay, who's over? And who's there but Jacob Black. So when Europe was colonizing the New World, some of the blacks headed over with a ship of settlers, and they ended up shacking up with a bunch of natives and ended up marrying into them, and lo and behold, the Black family has a offshoot who the Black family in Europe doesn't want to acknowledge because they're not pure blood. And so Bella and Jacob get to talking and they end up going for a walk because walks are always important in novels like this. And she feels like she can trust him, and she goes on and she tells him about stuff, and then finally he's like, hey, do you know the Cullen family? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I have a theory about them. And she's like, what? And he's like, I don't think they're normal. They always look like they just came out of a deep fryer. So Bella starts to suspect there's something weird about her boyfriend, and on a walk in the woods, he finally turns to her and is like, you know what I am? And Bella's like, no, I don't. And he's like, just say it. And Bella's like, crazy? And he's like, no, Bella, I'm a vampire. And she's just like, oh, okay, well that's great, I'm a witch. And Edward is a little bit worried because, you know, the whole animosity between the wizarding world and the magical creature world. But because he's so in love with her, and he's already not, you know, fed off of her, he thinks, you know what, maybe we can overcome this baby. So Edward brings her back to the house, introduces him to his family. She gets invited to go play baseball with them. Charlie's happy that she's keeping up and excelling in her wizarding skills, and that she's actually able to have a social life, and that his daughter is probably going to turn out okay. But if he only knew she was fraternizing with vampires. So during their baseball game, a bunch of rogue vampires come in and, you know, they feed off of people, unlike the family of Cullens who only feed off of animals. And Bella feels the need to warn her father because everybody in town is now in danger, but if she does so, then she has to deal with the fact that she's hid the fact that Edward is a vampire from her father, and that they are vampires and they would be dangerous, and her father wouldn't just exterminate the vampires who would just come into town, but would also exterminate the vampires that she was, you know, friends with. So people start dying, and Bella starts to feel kind of upset because this is happening and it's on her, and she could have stopped these people from dying, and her marks start to slip. Finally Bella says to Edward, I can't deal with this anymore, you and your family have to go, I have to tell my father, we have to deal with these vampires. And Edward gets all upset because he's like, dude, we're gonna help you, it's okay, Charlie likes us. And Bella's like, no, my father hates you guys. The moment he finds out you're vampires, it doesn't matter if he liked you once, you're dead. Bella goes to talk to her father with Edward, and she's like, Dad, we need to talk. And Charlie is like, dude, I can't talk right now, I have to deal with some stuff, you know, those murders. And Bella's like, Dad, I know about the murders, they're vampires, there's a group of vampires, and I know this because Edward knows this. And Charlie's like, why does your boyfriend know about this stuff? I told you you weren't supposed to tell people about the whole wizarding world. And Edward's like, it's because I'm a vampire, sir. And so Charlie pulls out a shotgun and tries to blast Edward in the chest, but Bella jumps in front and says, no, Dad, I love him. And Charlie's like, we really need to talk about this later. And Bella's like, no, the Cullens are all vampires and they want to help you. And Charlie's just like, hold up a minute. Carlisle, my buddy from the hospital, he's a vampire. And Bella's like, yeah. Charlie looks at Edward and is like, how are you still alive? Haven't you been like chewing on people? And Edward's like, no, we're vegetarians, we only eat animals. And Charlie's like, bullshit, I don't believe that, but if you're gonna help me, fine, we'll deal with you later. And so Bella's all excited because she thinks she's finally overcome her father's prejudice against vampires, and you know, there are good vampires in the world. So the Cullens, Bella, and Charlie hunt down the rogue vampires. So climactic battle, rogue vampires are dead, Bella's been saved, Charlie's standing there, shotgun, silver bullets, knives, whole 9 yards, and he turns to the Cullens and says, I'll give you a 2-mile head start. And Bella's like, Dad, you can't do that. And he's like, they're monsters, sweetie. And so the first book of this rewrite of Twilight ends with Charlie being a badass, Bella being kind of upset with her father, and the Cullens on the run. Now granted, I wanted to go into more detail, talk about things like Voldemort, the socio-political relationships between wizards and vampires, more about Jacob, but Jacob doesn't really do anything until the second book anyway. So there you have it, a brief sketch of what I would do to rewrite Twilight in the universe of Harry Potter. But I know that you've just been waiting for the last part of this video because you want to know what I'm going to make you do. And I thought long and hard about that too, and only one thing really stood out to me. I want you to reenact a scene from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. But that's not all, you see. I want you to use vegetables and fruit as your characters. Have fun! I'll see you tomorrow.